dimineața. Poftim. Așa. Bună dimineața toată lumea, doamnă și domnilor. Astăzi la noi este ziua a doua, o zi care este dedicată Universal Acceptance Day, o zi prin care vor fi integrate mai multe prezentări și mai multe realizări în domeniul de schimb de informații dintre mediul academic, mediul public, organizațiile care fac parte din domeniul tehnologiilor informaționale. Vor fi efectuate anumite tipuri de exerciții și de aplicații în timpul sesiunilor, adică va fi o interacțiune nu numai de prezentări, dar și o interacțiune bazată pe anumite exerciții, pe anumite traininguri. Astăzi, în linii generale, la noi, toată informația care va fi prezentată se va baza pe prezentările de tip online, deoarece dacă suntem în era digitală, nu înseamnă că auditoria este mică, dar ea poate fi încă și mai mare dacă aplicăm tehnologiile informaționale și toate prezentările vor fi făcute online și participările online. Astăzi, la întâlnire, avem mai mulți participanți. Unul din participanți este la noi domnul Alexei Marciuc. Dumnealui este președintele Asociației Comunitatea Internet, totodată și coordonator național al Republicii Moldova ce se referă la guvernarea internet. De asemenea, dumnealui reprezintă sau promovează un dialog foarte strâns între organizațiile publice și mediul academic și sfera tehnică și aduce un mesaj de colaborare interetnică. Nu se face aluzie la anumite tipuri de religie sau schimburi de experiență, dar la o egalitate de utilizare a mediului online. Un alt vorbitor la noi va fi prezentat în format online. Este vorba de Tript Sinha, președintele Consiliului Administrației ICANN, precum și șef al Technology Officer de la Universitatea din Maryland, din SUA. Dumnealui are o experiență vastă la intersecția dintre mediul academic și guvernanța globală a infrastructurii internetului, inclusiv în domeniul stabilității și dezvoltării sistemului de numelor de domenii. Un alt vorbitor la noi va fi Curtis Lindquist, președintele și directorul executiv al ICANN, de asemenea va fi online. Dumnealui conduce o organizație responsabilă de coordonarea globală a sistemului de nume de domenii și contribuie activ la definitivarea agendei informaționale privind reziliența și evoluția internetului. De asemenea, astăzi îl avem pe domnul Andrei Pisacari, director adjunct al Agenției de Guvernare Electronică a Republicii Moldova. Dumnealui va reprezintă sectorul public responsabil de transformare digitală și implementarea serviciilor electronice în țară, un operator digital care aduce cooperarea între instituțiile statului și societatea civilă cu atât mai aproape prin intermediul tehnologiilor informaționale. De asemenea, astăzi îl avem pe Andrei Golovko, reprezentant al Cancelariei Prim-Ministrului, Anatolie Golovko, reprezentant al Cancelariei Prim-Ministrului Republicii Moldova. Dumnealui este implicat în coordonarea politicilor publice privind dezvoltarea digitală și cooperarea interinstituțională din acest domeniu. Un alt reprezentant la noi este, să-mi cer scuze dacă nu o să pronunț corect, dar este vorba despre Gülherme Canela de Souza Godoy. Este director pentru incluziune digitală și transformare digitală în cadrul UNESCO. Ea va fi de asemenea la noi online. Ne activează în domeniul politicilor de dezvoltare digitală, accesibilitate tehnologică și promovarea unor politici digitale inclusive la nivel global. În linii generale, noi ne bucurăm de o prezență largă din domeniul atât academic și tehnic și public la interacțiunea la această sesiune care ne vor aduce un schimb de experiență atât din punct de vedere global, cât și din punct de vedere legislativ național. În linii generale, Universal Acceptance Day este o oportunitate de a discuta cum putem face acest mediu digital mai accesibil și mai ușor de utilizat pentru toți, indiferent de limbă, țară și limitări tehnice. Acum oferim cuvântul domnului Alexei Marciuc să spună măcar 2-3 cuvinte la deschiderea acestui forum de astăzi. Poftim.
Mulțumesc, domnule Салтан. Добрый день, рад приветствовать всех на открытии Universal Acceptance Day в Молдове. Сегодня мы говорим о теме, которая на первый взгляд выглядит технической, но на самом деле касается очень практических вещей, того, насколько удобно и равноправно люди могут пользоваться интернетом на своих языках и в разных цифровых системах. Универсальное принятие подразумевает, чтобы электронная почта, доменные имена и онлайн-сервисы корректно работали с разными языками и алфавитами, чтобы у пользователей не возникало искусственных ограничений из-за того, как устроены технические стандарты. Это событие проходит в Молдове уже второй раз. С прошлого года Молдова является членом региональной координационной группы по универсальному принятию в ICANN. Эта платформа помогает странам региона обмениваться опытом и совместно двигаться к внедрению практических решений в этой области. Для нашей страны эта тема актуальна, учитывая языковое и культурное разнообразие и повсеместное развитие цифровых сервисов, над чем активно работает Агентство электронного управления и другие правительственные учреждения. И вопрос здесь не только технический, но и практический, о доступе, удобстве и равных возможностях в цифровой среде. Когда мы говорим об Universal Acceptance в международном контексте, ключевую роль здесь играют ICANN и ЮНЕСКО, которые являются партнерами сегодняшнего мероприятия и последовательно продвигают подходы к более открытому и многоязычному интернету на глобальном уровне. По мере того, как цифровая среда становится частью всех сфер жизни, от образования до государственных услуг, вопросы универсального принятия становятся все более прикладными. Они напрямую связаны с тем, насколько доступным остается интернет для разных групп пользователей. При этом важно понимать, что это не задача Молдовы или в целом какой-то одной страны или одной организации. Здесь требуется совместная работа технического сообщества, публичного сектора, международных организаций и частного сектора. Одна из целей сегодняшнего мероприятия как раз и направлена на то, чтобы каким-то образом скоординировать эти усилия и обсудить практические шаги в сторону универсального принятия. Отдельно стоит отметить, что тема Universal Acceptance постепенно становится частью более широкой международной повестки цифровой политики и развития интернета как глобальной инфраструктуры. Если языки и символы не поддерживаются на уровне систем, это автоматически создает барьеры для пользователей. Поэтому работа в этом направлении – это не только про стандарты, но и про снижение цифрового неравенства. Также развитие новых технологий, включая искусственный интеллект и глобальные платформы, делает эту тему еще более актуальной, потому что требования к совместимости и языковой поддержке растут. Сегодня важно не только обсуждать эти вопросы, но и переходить к более конкретным действиям в технологиях, в образовании и в практиках внедрения стандартов. Хочу поблагодарить ICANN и ЮНЕСКО за поддержку этого направления и также всех партнеров и экспертов, которые вовлечены в развитие инструментов универсального принятия на практике. Spasiba za vнимание и хорошей работы в рамках Universal Acceptance Day.
Vă mulțumesc, domnul Marciuc, pentru cuvânt de salut. Acum avem online pe doamna Tripti Sinha. Este ea?
Hello, I'm Tripti Sinha, Chair of the ICANN Board, and I'm delighted to welcome everyone to UA Day, celebration of universal acceptance, as well as the many languages that are spoken and used around the world today. I was born in India, a country rich with linguistic diversity, and spent much of my life moving back and forth between India and the US. As a native Hindi speaker, I understand firsthand how important universal acceptance is to enable the Internet to work the same for everyone, regardless of the language they speak or the script they use. Today, there are more than 5.3 billion Internet users and billions more expected to come online. Most of these new users will be from countries where people speak and write in languages other than English. By achieving universal acceptance in every Internet-enabled device, software application, and system, we can help ensure a more inclusive Internet for both new and existing users. When people can use the language and script of their choice online, they are able to experience the full social and economic power of the Internet. Universal acceptance means that no one is excluded, no one is left behind. Whether you are joining a UA Day event virtually or in person, your contributions are important. By participating in UA Day, being part of the UA community, and making your own systems UA ready, you are helping build a truly global, multilingual Internet. This work is a collective effort of many, and I'm encouraged and inspired by everyone's commitment. I'm especially pleased that many of this year's events are focused on UA adoption, as it shows how far we've come in building support for UA. Thank you to the organizers of this year's UA Day events, to everyone taking part around the world, and to all those who have made this milestone event possible. Together, we are moving closer to making universal acceptance a reality and building one Internet for all. Thank you.
Acum va avea cu un cuvânt de salut la noi vine domnul Curtis Lindquist, dumnealui este președintele și directorul executiv nemijlocit al ICANN. Vă rog.
Hello to everyone around the world celebrating Universal Acceptance Day. I'm Curtis Lindquist, President and CEO of ICANN, and I'm delighted to join you in recognizing the remarkable global community that has come together to advance universal acceptance. I'd like to congratulate the UA Day organizers and volunteers. Your energy and commitment are what makes these events possible. Thanks to your leadership, we are turning awareness into action and action into measurable progress. At ICANN, we believe the Internet must serve everyone. That means ensuring people can access and use domain names and email addresses in their own languages and scripts, no matter where they live or which community they belong to. A truly global Internet depends on systems that recognize and support all valid domain names and email addresses across every script, every language, and every region. UA is a cornerstone of digital inclusion. When applications, devices, and platforms fully support all valid domain names and email addresses, we expand opportunity and strengthen trust in the Internet's infrastructure. This work cannot be done alone. That's why our partnership with UNESCO is so important. We deeply value UNESCO's leadership in promoting linguistic diversity and multilingualism in the digital world. Together, we share a commitment to ensuring that the Internet reflects and respects the world's rich cultural and linguistic heritage. By aligning technical standards with inclusive policies and educational efforts, we're helping build an Internet that truly belongs to everyone. The progress we have made is significant, but the journey continues. Thank you for your dedication and for celebrating UA Day. Together, we're building an interoperable, resilient, and inclusive Internet for all.
Mulțumesc. Acum avem alături pe domnul Andrei Pisacari, director adjunct al Agenției de Guvernare Electronică. Poftim, domnule.
Mulțumesc frumos și mă bucur foarte mult că sunt alături de dumneavoastră la acest eveniment frumos și plin de speranță. Să aflăm lucruri utile și bune pentru noi. De ce suntem noi aici? Deoarece noi avem o responsabilitate în cadrul guvernului pentru a da posibilitate ca toate serviciile publice care le prestează guvernul să aibă un canal digital. Și aici suntem, dacă ne uităm la ziua de azi, suntem la un nivel destul de avansat în raport cu mediul de afaceri și cu cetățenii, circa 77% deja din serviciile publice destinate mediului de afaceri au canal digital, sunt digitale, în jur de 60% pentru cetățeni. Observăm o adopție enormă la nivel de consum a serviciilor electronice, din 10 milioane de servicii prestate de către stat. În anul 2025, în mediul de afaceri, 80% au fost consumate servicii electronice și în jur de 60% cetățenii au consumat servicii electronice. Asta ne demonstrează faptul că adopția serviciilor electronice are un nivel destul de avansat, în creștere. O strategie care a fost aprobată de către guvern către anul 2030, strategie de transformare digitală, impune ca noi să ne transformăm și serviciile să devină 100% digitale. Și aici, când vorbim de servicii digitale, nu putem să nu punem în discuție securitatea și accesul securizat la serviciile publice electronice, în special acolo unde avem servicii tranzacționale cu înscriere de drepturi și obligațiuni în registrele de stat. Și aici vorbim de un alt proiect care noi suntem în implementarea wallet-ului european, care venim să-l implementăm la nivel de standarde IDAS 2.0 și să ne asigurăm că cetățenii care și mediul de afaceri atunci când interacționează cu statul și nu doar, vorbim și sectorul bancar, și sectorul de telecomunicații, și serviciile private, o fac cu identități sigure și în raport cu persoanele care de fapt se pretind a fi în raport cu aceste servicii. De ce ne bucurăm foarte mult să fim aici, să contribuim la acest eveniment și să ne asigurăm că siguranța în internet este asigurată pe deplin și și serviciile publice care sunt furnizate de către stat au o valoare deplină pentru cetățeni și satisfacție adecvată. Mulțumim.
Le mulțumesc, domnul presecretar. Eu sper că cooperarea între sectorul public și sectorul privat trebuie să aducă rezultate cu mult mai așteptate la dezvoltarea tehnologiilor și protecția informației prin care dumneavoastră urmăriți la prestarea persoanelor din Republica Moldova. Mulțumesc. Acum avem pe domnul Anatolie Golovco, reprezentantul Cancelariei de Stat a prim-ministrului. Vă rog.
Bună ziua tuturor! Mă bucur să fiu oaspete la evenimentul dumneavoastră. Vă mulțumesc pentru invitație. Eu aș vrea să accentuez atenția asupra câtorva aspecte care s-au schimbat de la ultimul eveniment sau care le-am observat eu că ar fi relevante pentru a fi comunicate azi. Deci, cred că în toate mesajele care le-am avut eu și la alte evenimente organizate de forumul de guvernanță a internetului, eu am insistat întotdeauna pe dezvoltarea infrastructurii internetului, pe dezvoltarea infrastructurii critice a internetului, numelor de domenii, interconexiunile și modul cât de rezilientă este rețeaua chiar și între operatori pentru ca să nu avem avarii semnificative. Deci dezvoltarea infrastructurii internetului, chiar dacă nu este direct în agenda la Universal Acceptance Day, continuă a fi o prioritate importantă. Noi nu putem să ne bazăm doar pe companiile foarte mari care au bugetele să dezvolte internetul și aici mă refer în special la hyperscaler, din cauza că, având subdezvoltată infrastructura națională și având fenomene pe care noi le observăm în comunitatea de cybersecurity, în care infrastructurile lor disproporțional de mari cu infrastructurile noastre sunt abuzate, asta duce la atacuri de DOS volumetrice în segmentul nostru a internetului și asta e un fenomen în general neplăcut. Alt subiect pe care, un alt unghi de vedere care mi-ar plăcea să-l abordez este faptul că noi observăm tot mai mult că împreună cu creșterea numărului de răufăcători în internet, în spațiu digital, tot mai des pedepsiți sunt utilizatorii legitimi. Când spun pedepsiți, mă refer la faptul că tot mai multe mijloace de detecție de boți, care chiar și pentru oameni devin tot mai greu de detectat, sunt introduse, nemai vorbind de oamenii cu necesități speciale. Tot mai mult noi constrângem modul în care anumite pagini sau sisteme pot fi accesate din cauza că iarăși ne temem de tot felul de boți, de răufăcători și în ultimă instanță, în loc să fie pedepsiți răufăcătorii, sunt pedepsiți prin degradarea nivelului de user experience utilizatorii legitimi. Deci este un subiect mare care necesită dezbatere inclusiv cu mediul academic, care ar fi echilibru potrivit între lupta cu frauda și utilizatorii legitimi, pentru ca să nu aibă de suferit utilizatorii legitimi. Accessibilitatea, accessibility, este domeniul foarte mare, cred că e cel mai apropiat de discuția noastră de azi. În continuare sunt foarte multe pagini care nu au implementate standardele pentru persoanele cu dizabilități, persoanele cu necesități speciale și cred că poate ca rezultat sau ca o rezoluție a întâlnirii noastre de azi ar fi să identificăm resursele necesare, să avem un audit, să înțelegem în ce măsură unde guvernul ar trebui să depună mai mult efort pentru ca cel puțin paginile oficiale să aibă nivelul suficient pentru persoanele cu necesități speciale. Următorul subiect care cred că merită a fi discutat mai mult, iar și observația mea de la ultima noastră discuție publică, este schimbul care se întâmplă tot mai mult în modul de consum a internetului. Deci, clar că e un trend care se întâmplă de mult, dar acea frază de mobile first sau schimbarea patternului de consum a internetului spre dispozitive cu ecran mic, foarte des sunt dispozitive cu ecran și mai mic, mă refer la smartwatch-uri. Trebuie să avem grijă că acele servicii care se digitalizează chiar și din partea statului sunt prietenoase pentru user experience-ul care vine cu noile inovații. Nu știu, poate acest moment vine dintr-o frustrare personală care s-a întâmplat acum 2 zile în urmă, când, fiind la bancă, unicul dispozitiv care îl aveam era telefonul mobil și mi-am dat seama că anumite funcționalități sunt foarte confortabile de a fi accesate de pe un desktop, de pe un calculator mare și foarte incomode de a fi accesate de pe device-uri cu ecrane mai mici. Cred că e un subiect foarte mare să regândim user experience-ul și accessibility de pe device-uri care sunt tot mai mult folosite de oameni. Și bine, eu sunt om tehnic, dar noi avem foarte mulți cetățeni nu la fel de bine pregătiți tehnic, care au dreptul să aibă un nivel de confort în consumul serviciilor digitale, inclusiv de pe ecranele telefonelor. Și pentru că nicio discuție nu se rezumă fără inteligență artificială, în special modele lingvistice mari care se pare că au inundat tot discursul public, mă bucur că acum există un instrument real care ne-ar permite sincronizarea între limbi și efortul de a întreține chiar și paginile oficiale a guvernului de către guvern în mai multe limbi, probabil o să fie posibil de redus, pentru că, iarăși, modelele lingvistice mari deja sunt foarte bune în traducerea automată a textelor, calitatea e comparabilă cu un text scris de un om, respectiv, cred că AI-ul, în contextul, iarăși, discuției agendei de azi despre accesibilitatea în mai multe limbi, AI-ul, în ipostaza sa de modele lingvistice mari, este o soluție reală în ziua de azi. În același timp, din perspectiva la accessibility, este important să înțelegem că AI-ul și modelele existente, toate sistemele pe care le vedem, nu au intenție. Deci, lupta cu boții, despre care pomeneam un pic mai devreme și pe care noi am avut-o toți anii trecuți, devine un impediment în interacțiunea oamenilor care folosesc agenții de AI cu serviciile digitale. Deci, pentru că consumatorul final nu este un agent AI, ci este omul care orchestrează acel agent AI. Când noi acum luptăm cu boții tradiționali, noi împiedicăm dreptul oamenilor care folosesc agenții AI să consume serviciile digitale. Deci, iarăși, e o discuție mare cum noi regândim protecția boților în epoca AI pentru a nu împiedica dreptul oamenilor care folosesc agenții AI să acceseze servicii digitale. Discuții tot foarte mare. Încă o dată vă mulțumesc pentru invitație, sunt foarte fericit să fiu oaspete la acest eveniment și un program productiv. Vă mulțumesc!
Vă mulțumim, domnul Golovco. Eu pot să spun că cu certitudine noi, în afară de discuțiile care vor fi astăzi orientate și spre cooperare între sectorul public și sectorul privat în domeniul de protecție a informației, de stabilire și a infrastructurii critice din Republica Moldova, noi vom avea și un chestionar să vedem cum este percepute aceste incidente de către cetățeni. Și în final noi avem cuvânt de salut doamna Guilherme Canela de Souza Godoy, director pentru incluziune digitală și transformare digitală din cadrul UNESCO.
Dear friends, it's a pleasure to welcome you on this occasion of Universal Acceptance Day. I am Guilherme Canela, Director of the Division for Digital Inclusion and Policies and Digital Transformation here at UNESCO. Greetings from Paris. I would like to congratulate the organizers of this event for being shortlisted through this year's call for proposals and for their dedication to celebrating this important milestone. I also commend the strong partnership and the valuable support provided by ICANN in enabling these initiatives, which play a key role in advancing universal acceptance globally. In a more and more connected world, UA, Universal Acceptance, plays an important role in contributing to the Global Digital Compact and the WSIS Plus 20 review implementation, the World Summit of Information Society, both of which recognize the right of every individual to fully participate in digital life, while highlighting the importance of promoting digital inclusion and meaningful connectivity at all levels. I'm honored to share UNESCO's mandate and vision to promote multilingualism in cyberspace and ensure that all people and peoples, regardless of language, can fully participate in the digital world. This commitment is firmly grounded in the 2003 UNESCO recommendation concerning the promotion and use of multilingualism and universal access to cyberspace, which recognizes freedom of expression in the language of one's choice and access to multilingual information as fundamental freedoms and, of course, establish human rights. At UNESCO, we believe that linguistic diversity is essential for inclusive knowledge societies, and we work with governments, the private sector, civil society, and technical communities to foster multilingual digital content, accessible infrastructures, and open, inclusive, and online spaces for all as part of their human rights. Language is not only a means of communication, but also a cornerstone of cultural identity and knowledge that probably you know better than I do. In collaboration with ICANN, UNESCO has been actively advancing the Universal Acceptance Agenda, ensuring that digital systems recognize and support all scripts and languages. This is essential for inclusion, diversity, and equal opportunity online, as well as the championing of human rights in the digital space. UNESCO's mandate is further reinforced through the International Decade of Indigenous Languages, led by UNESCO, which seeks to protect, revitalize, and promote indigenous languages, including in digital environments, ensuring that indigenous peoples can fully exercise their linguistic rights online. UNESCO also recognized the role of developing inclusive language technologies and launched the Global Roadmap for Multilingualism in the Digital Era. This document provides a strategic framework to advance the ethical language technologies, including AI and frontier technologies, bridge digital linguistic inequalities, and support under-resourced and indigenous languages in digital transformation. We especially recognize the vital role of women and girls as leaders and knowledge bearers in preserving languages and promoting digital inclusion in their communities. Engaging the youth is central to our mission, as they are the innovators and future leaders shaping a more inclusive digital world. This is a crucial step in making the internet truly global, inclusive, and accessible to everyone. I wish all participants of UA Day productive and thought-provoking set of events. May this celebration reinforce our shared commitment to a multilingual and universally accessible internet, a leaving no language behind for a truly and human-centered digital future. Thank you.
Eu vă mulțumesc la toți vorbitorii. În linii generale, noi dorim unul alții să avem o zi productivă și cred că de acum este timpul să începem prima sesiune. Sesiunea care va dura un pic de timp mai îndelungat, dar o sesiune care s-ar reduce la acceptarea universală și un ecosistem internet inclusiv prin reducerea decalajelor și în conectivitatea globală. Aici avem pe vorbitor directorul pentru implicarea stakeholderilor din Europa, din ICANN, Andrei Becale, așa că să-i oferim lui cuvântul. Vă rog frumos.
Hello everyone, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Yes, great. So, thank you again for organizing. Congratulations for yesterday AGF. I did follow a couple of sessions after, and as an Italian speaker, you know, I can pick up some for language. So that was, again, congratulations for organizing these events and today's event particularly, since we are delving into one of the key aspects of the evolution of the internet. So we have a presentation that we sent to Alexei. Shall I share it or you will share it? Because we will be sharing the same presentation with David from UNESCO. Hello?
Andrea, you can use your slides
Okay.
directly from your side.
Okay. Okay. So just let me do the sharing and okay. Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, everything is okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. So just before, because then I won't be able to see you anymore, because then I have, when I put full screen on my end, I won't see you. So if there are questions, if you know, yeah, there are questions, just stop me with your audio. Just jump in. And Alexei, how long do we have?
Yes, everything is okay.
Yeah, how long? So it's
1 hour.
1 hour between me and David.
You have a presentation 1 hour.
Okay, but I
With
I don't want to
UNESCO.
send you to sleep with 1 hour of slides. So these are very technical slides. I mean, I'll jump some of those and I'll make some comments going through. But I think we don't need 1 hour. David, are you online?
Yes, good morning, Andrea,
Hola.
colleagues. Buenos dias, hola, as we say in my mother tongue, Spanish.
Yeah. Buongiorno. So, David, I will pass you the presentation once we get into the UNESCO part.
Super,
Okay?
thank you. Grazie
Okay.
mille.
Prego. So,
Andrea, one
just-
hour for both, for UNESCO and for ICANN.
okay, there you go.
Yes.
1 hour for both, that makes sense. I think we can even make
Thanks.
shorter, but but we will see. Okay, so let's start with the Universal Acceptance Day, the main presentation that, this is what ICANN promotes and presents at all the UA Days events across the globe. But there are tens of them. So, many people, we all use the word, the internet, and we take it, almost for granted that the internet is mainly in Latin script, so that's from its origins. But reality is that the internet is nowadays no longer the platforms, the technology of when it was, when it became popular, let's say 20, 25 years ago. So nowadays we have almost 5 billion internet users, and these internet users represents a large variety of languages and script. So here you can see the English language, which is the English that's kind of defined the early days of the internet and its development. It's only 49% of the all English users, and this percentage is steadily decreasing. You can see from the slides on the right side that basically 1/5 of the internet users are Chinese speakers. They speak Mandarin Chinese, and then it comes Spanish, English with 500 million of internet users, and Hindi with also 500 million of internet users. And this is, even this slide itself, it kind of gives you a good representation, gives us a good representation of how the disparity between the predominance of Latin script and English language in the internet doesn't really pair with the reality of the internet users. And we at ICANN, as you heard, both from my boss, Curtis Lindquist, the CEO, and the chairman of the board, it really goes back into the commitment of the WSIS process, of the WSIS, of the Geneva Summit Declaration of Principle. And so we are speaking about in 2003, so that's 23 years ago, and that was still the early days of the internet for many. Think that in 2003 there was no Facebook yet, and of course there was no TikTok, there was no WhatsApp, and there was no Instagram. So it was still an internet that was by and large kind of still defined by its academic route and its promise of connecting everyone across the globe. And this is reflected very much on the WSIS Declaration, that when the United Nations gathered all governments and all stakeholders. It was also one of the first time where the United Nations had an event where all stakeholders were invited, and I can testify that I was there. I was a young student back then at the university, and I did participate at the Geneva phase and after at the Tunis phase. And I well remember the spirit, the hope, the vision of the internet of those early days. And as we heard also from the UNESCO ADG, Guillermo Canella, there was, and nowadays I think we still promote that, but you can question how much that is being supported. There was this understanding that technology by itself is not the end, and that internet was to be a tool to promote development, to share culture. In a way, it was a technology that could help achieve the UN goals. And in that, the knowledge society concept that UNESCO brought to the event helped in shifting from a technology focus. I remember back early days was even, internet was part of these ICTs, information and communication technologies, to bring that into more the development perspective. So multilingualism was indeed a key element of the two phases of the WSIS process, and UNESCO, without doubt, was the champion of that, also because it's part of UNESCO's mandate. In Tunis, so the second phase of the World Summit on Information Society, there was a direct reference to ICANN and the role of domain names and email addresses in advancing multilingualism. So back then, in 2005, there were still no internationalized domain names. We will see in the next slides. So back then was really an internet where to search an address bar, to write an address on your search bar, you will have to use only Latin characters. So there was, back then, it was really a big limitation, even in accessing the internet, not only on the application layer that we'll see. So the strive for multilingualism continues, and in the UN processes, in the Global Digital Compact in 2024, years ago, there is again the call for including all languages and formats. The International Telecommunication Union and the World Telecom Development Conference, they also strengthen the importance of universal acceptance. And then, of course, the WSIS Plus 20 process that ended just a few months ago, reaffirmed the importance, even after 20 years of WSIS process. The need became even more urgent and more more important to achieve the universal acceptance and to have all languages in script. I heard yesterday and even this morning you mentioned AI and large language models. These are great examples of how yes, technology evolves and brings up new services, but they continue evolving based on a set of languages and knowledge that are exclusive and are not and they are not representing all languages and scripts. So here we have another dimension of the digital divide, which was another big topic of discussion and goal of the WSIS process, that technology may evolve and make everybody accessible, and you may have access to the internet. You may feel that the digital divide is no longer an issue, but actually digital divide is a way more complex issue, and not resolving also bring consequences in that new technologies such as AI. Okay, now we go for a few slides deep into what ICANN does. That will help us understanding why universal acceptance is important and why ICANN has a role. I may go fast on that. I don't know if you are familiar. Let me see you, because otherwise I don't see you. Are you familiar with The DNS now icon works. You can say yes, no, nod. Okay, assume you're not, so I'll go into that one. Back into the presentation mode. And now I don't see it anymore. Okay, now I can see you. Can you see the presentation?
No.
Oh, okay, that's why. Sorry. Now you go. Now?
Yes, it's okay. Now it's okay.
Right. Okay. Okay. So the domain name, basically, it's what we human use to identify an address. And this address, you know, UNESCO.org, ICANN.org, you know, BBC.com. These identify, you know, specific institutions. We all know them, we use them. But for the technology itself, the domain name is just a transliteration of a string of numbers. You can see here, ICANN.org is actually the IP address of 192.0.43.7. So that's how actually computers interact and dialogue to each other through numbers. And for us humans, it's much easier to remember letters than numbers. And that's one of the key basically work that ICANN does, is to transform, you know, IP addresses into domain names, into letters. Basically, the IP addresses and the domain names are what allows tens of thousands of networks across the globe to communicate to each other and become what we see as one single internet, and allows us to navigate through the internet. So, you know, I'm here in Portugal, here in Chisinau, and we have this communication live. My computer is sending via, I don't know how many networks, packets of zeros and one, and these packets have an IP address and they know where to go, spread through the network and come into the web stream. So that's basically at its core, ICANN mission, what ICANN does. Now, as I was mentioning before, the top level domain names on the right-hand side of the dot, until 2012, will only be able to be written in ASCII language, meaning basically in Latin characters. And there was, you know, there was a big limitation that we recognize, and you know, it comes from the historic origins of the internet being, you know, a technology that was developed in the United States in the late 60s and early 70s, and nobody, when they developed these technologies, they thought that one day 5 billion people will use it. So they really didn't take care much of even thinking about different scripts and languages. But we allowed in 2012 the introduction of non-Latin script into the root, so the possibility to have dot something in other scripts than Latin. And in exactly 6 days, we will open the next round of top-level domain names that everybody can, again, participate to running a top-level domain name, and this will expand even more the opportunities for introducing new scripts and languages. So this is just a slide that shows you how we moved from 22 top-level domain names till 2009, and then IDNs started to be included in 2009. Actually, it was to stand corrected, and then 2012 this was open for everyone, and so we started having way more scripts, and now we have 61 top-level domain names, so the domain names that identify countries and territories in IDNs. You can see here just an example. And for the GTLD, so the direct top-level domain names, we have 90, and we will expect to have many more. We will know in a few months' time. So as I said, in a week, less than a week, there will be the opening of the program to apply for new top-level domain names. And we have seen a lot of interest on IDNs. We heard that in China, if you take a taxi and if you sit in the back, you can see companies advertising new top-level domain names. So the interest of applying for new top-level domain names, it's very large. At least that's what we heard from China. We met with the Chinese Vice Minister a few months ago. He mentioned that there is a lot of attention on that. This is the other part that makes, universal acceptance very important. I mean, or more than very important, very tangible why it's an issue. So emails probably is the oldest form of technology of communication in the internet times. There are so many platforms and internet business that came to the market thinking that they wanted to kill the email, but the email really, it's very hard to kill. Think about, WhatsApp, Slack, but even before that, all the ICQ, all the instant messaging. Anyway, so the email is indeed a key important part of the internet. And there is a big limitation because, these are examples of email addresses in different scripts, which includes top-level domain name. And, if you speak Korean and use Korean for everything in your daily life and for work, but when you want to send an email, these are other examples in Tamil, in Greek, Devanagari, in Chinese. When you want to subscribe to a service, a newsletter, or you want to sign up to Uber or Bolt, or Meta is doing some good development on that. Your email is not recognized, it's not considered a valid address, and there you go. So here it's a big limitation and for me, speaking a Latin character language, I can see the problem, but probably I cannot feel it completely. I think for you, you also, you have dual script, you use Cyrillic and Latin. I think you have even better equipped to understand that. And these are all examples of other categories of universal acceptance that may have problems. So although this is improving much faster, not all services and applications that recognize also the new domains as email address. So sometimes, you have an email address ending with .news or .something, and that doesn't get recognized from an application. This is quite technical, but that's just to give you an example of how, if you start from the bottom, and that's where you have a complete ASCII email address. So, Andrea@gmail.com, for instance, and then you get, 97, 98 acceptance rate. As you introduce, longer top-level domain name, IDNs, and before the @ you see the acceptance gets lower and lower until when you get into a full IDN, top-level domain name, and an email address, the acceptance goes down to 8%. So these are just some further studies on the acceptance rate of emails. We can go fast. Here the same, in ICANN we keep monitoring, tracking those services. Also because, just let me pause here. This is a technology, like all the internet technology, that it's basically, a voluntary adoption. At ICANN, we are not a standard setting body where, we force you to adopt the technology, otherwise you won't be able to function. So, this is the beauty and the curse of our model, that, we cannot really force anyone to adopt this technology. It really has to be the user, and that's why, we, among the different activities, we promote the UA days for doing that. And to do that, we present numbers. We have almost 6 billion internet users worldwide, and it's 74% of the global population. So we still have 2.2 billion people that are not online, and they are online. They're not online. They're not speaking English, nor Italian, nor Spanish, and most likely they access the internet through their own language, and that's why it's important. And it's also an opportunity for businesses to make sure that they can use fully the technology in their own language, and the technology is there to do that. And so again, the DNS has evolved during times, and but we still recognize that in this evolution, many applications that did not picked up. So we really want to achieve that anyone is able to navigate and communicate on the internet using their chosen language without having to transliterate, to translate, to change keyboard to navigate. So that's really our goal of the universal acceptance. Here is kind of our belief. We want to do that because we believe into that, because it goes into the mandate and the recommendation of the WSIS processes, because we believe into that, and the evolution of the internet has to address that. And we want that when we speak about inclusive knowledge societies, we mean what we speak for, and that we allow that the technology makes people able to do that through their own language. Here, I think we can go faster on that one. So who can help us in achieving universal acceptance? As I mentioned, we have to make people adopt voluntarily these protocols and this innovation. The technology is there, but you need to be adopting that. So that goes into those developing softwares, of course, the organizations and the big email and service providers that provides systems for everyday citizens, for governments, policymakers. They can make, when they do the bid for public service to companies, they can ask to the company that they enable universal acceptance in their service. The academia, all the computer science, network engineer schools, that they include in the curriculum of IT curricula notions and information about universal acceptance and how to do that. I think we can skip here. If you're a business, as I was mentioning before, there is lots of opportunities in embracing universal acceptance because still have billions of people not using the internet, and they won't be using the internet in English. And as a government, can make it a requirement for your public bids and services. So if you are developing or rolling out e-government platforms, electronic identity, which is a big thing now in Europe, make sure that allow all scripts and languages through universal acceptance. And civil society, raise awareness on that. Events like the one that we are having today, it's a great example of, tackling these issues and bringing it to the attention of the government and the business from the civil society. In academia, we developed a curricula on how to implement the universal acceptance. So if you have connection with the university, this could be a good resource to share with them and for them to share with their students and programs. And then the technical community, ICANN works as a voluntary organization open to everyone. I was mentioning that yesterday. And, that's why it's important to participate, because your engineers, your recent graduates in computer science, but also, it can be political science like myself. They can come in ICANN. There is funding to come to ICANN to participate in these meetings as well and be part of addressing those issues. And basically, it can be a small part of your contribution, but it moves forward this technology a great time. Of course, if you're running a top-level domain name as a registry or as a registrar, we have lots of resources in ICANN. So if you're already part of the industry, to implement universal acceptance in your systems, in the root. This one, if you have your own website, you can also, and these are all resources that we make available in our website on universal acceptance. And that's where I think it's a good segue, because, we, as I was mentioning at the beginning, ICANN was part of the discussion of the World Summit on Information Societies 23 years ago, starting even before. And early on, one of the key partners that we identified was, of course, UNESCO, which is the United Nations agency, the mandate of multilingualism within the UN, of protecting the indigenous languages. And this is a very dear project to me, because before coming to ICANN, I actually worked at UNESCO, and I worked launching this very program of implementing IDNs into the root. So this is something that it's really dear to me. And I think from now, I pass it on to David to continue with the work that UNESCO does and how we collaborate. And then from there, I think we are done. Wait, are there any questions so far?
I have a question.
Please.
So you've mentioned before the importance of certain roles, for example, software engineers. They're basically the people who are producing these softwares who require the compatibility of the languages. And my question is, what incentives or motivation do these big platforms have in order to provide full compatibility with languages, for example, Arabic, that requires perhaps remaking the whole layout of a website or application?
Yeah, well, this is a big question. So the incentive, of course, these are for-profit companies. They have to look at their budget line every time that they do something. So for many of those, even the larger, it's really, they don't, sometimes they don't even see the opportunity. Okay, so I remember we had a meeting that must have been 3-4 years ago with Uber. And back then, Uber was operating already in something like 60 countries, but they couldn't, you couldn't use Uber, you couldn't open an account with an ADN email, okay? And when we met with Uber, to our surprise, and there was already a multi-billion company, they didn't know that it was an issue. They didn't think there was an issue. We had to tell them, look, like, if you want to operate in Egypt, if you want to operate in Thailand, of course, you can operate using your systems not UA ready, but you are kind of leaving out big chunks of your potential customers, because not all of them, although many can, but not all of them are able, aware, willing, literate enough to use ASCII email address. So sometimes, like even if for big companies, it's kind of lack of knowledge and understanding of the difficulties that this can pose to their customers. So it's really mainly that. And it's, of course, they have to do an investment. They have to change the system, they have to change the layout, the API. There's some work to be done there. But it always, it comes as an afterthought. That's why we are pushing for universal acceptance. And and things change big times now. Meta, all the big platforms, Meta, Google, X, Twitter, they all, former Twitter, they all are way more advanced in UA ready. But what happens is also that the technology keeps evolving, no? So now we have something like 90 scripts into the root, and David can tell us how many scripts there are across the globe, and these are thousands of scripts, okay? And so even in ICANN, we continuously include new scripts into the root, and then platforms and services, they need to be including them in their services. So it's a long process, it's a continuous process, but it needs to be done. It needs to be done, and you need to, actually pointing to a good question, you need to point out to the business opportunity for that. Because as I said, that's not a standard. It's like, if you are going to the UK and you want to plug your, computer, you need to have a different plug adapter, because that's a standard, otherwise you cannot use it, okay? But the internet doesn't work like that. It was kind of one of the kind of original architecture of the internet. It has to be an open platforms where the standard is adopted, and it's not called a standard, it's called actually a protocol. It was accepted by the use of the people. But at one point, you need to push for more acceptance, because you're leaving people out and you're forcing people to adapt themselves to the technology. So I hope you answer your question. As I said, the incentives, it's really, it's not that we are paying them, but it's for them to show that it's not only important for, enabling everybody to express themselves, but also mainly because there is a business opportunity for them, because they're leaving out millions and billions of users out of their services. Okay, are there any other questions, or is that clear enough?
Hello. Tell
Hello.
me, please, what's happening with the big mailbox providers like Gmail, Outlook, Yahoo? Are they actually moving on the EIA system, or just watching from the sidelines? Thank you.
Some of them are moving, some of them are moving very slowly. But as I was mentioning, the big ones are moving much faster. But still, you can. So of course, email is a good example, because email is still the probably only remaining neutral technology in the internet. Okay, because you send an email from a service, it ends in another service platforms, and that always works. If I cannot send you a WhatsApp on your TikTok, or you know. So this is something that, like the evolution of the internet went into a way more compartmentalized communication system. So the problem is that, you know, many, you know, Google, for instance, is very far ahead. They're allowing several scripts. But then the problem is that, you know, you may have the IDN, like before the ad, you're gonna have non-ASCII. After the ad, you're gonna have the ASCII. As an email that I show you in the slide, it was this one. What is this? Is this slide? You see, as you go up from the bottom to the top. So from full ASCII email with a short top-level domain name, so 2 letters or 3 letters, .com, .net, or .uk, all the way into non-Latin script, IDN, you know, the acceptance of that goes way down from 98 to 14. You can see things are improving, you know, but we improved from 2017 to 2025 by 7 points, 6 points. So it's still slow. So as I said, big email providers, they you know, they're far advanced, but email, it's probably the most complicated because it's completely, you know, it's neutral. So it depends, you know, you can send it, but then you don't know if you will be received or it's accepted in a platform that you want to sign up.
Thank you.
Hello. So I've just learned that our national top-level domain don't accept diacritics, even if Romanian language have diacritics. I'm sure there is a background story behind it why it didn't work, but I'm curious to learn what stopped us to implement it, and I'm curious to see what resources in general exist to have this kind of small or big project depending on complexity that also I have to learn. But I also have a question. The question is how other countries' languages deal with the situation. For example, in the French, probably historically they were registering domain names without diacritics, and after when the diacritics arrive, it's completely different domain name. Do they usually the registrators sell two domains names, or they forbid to register with diacritics if a domain already exists without diacritics? So it's a non-technical but very troublemaking topic, if you allow me. So how others deal with that, if you know?
So two things. First, on the first point you mentioned of the top-level domain name, nothing stops you to do that. So to do the full IDN, even with the critics, you can do that. And as a CCTLD, you just need to work with ICANN, and I can help you with that. And to know how to implement it into the root, this is in your, you know, it's completely feasible. And you know, so let's speak about that, and we'll be happy. Actually, will be for me an occasion to come to this, you know, with my colleague from the CCTLD support team, and to do that. And it's important because the CCTLDs, they do have kind of an impact nationally, which is very important because people, they recognize it's still kind of you know, it's closer to them than the generic, the .com, and then as I said, we have a process inside ICANN to help the CCTLDs to develop that. In terms of the critics, you know, you mean the possibility to use the critics in the after the dot or before the dot?
Now, I mean, for example, in the .fr, if you have a domain name already registered without diacritics, without accent aigu, and someone tried to register with avec accent aigu, what happened there? So they allow them register or not to have this confusion, because if anyone expect to have with diacritics but someone register another domain that impersonates, so how they deal with this situation?
Yeah, this goes into another big topic in ICANN, which is called the DNS abuse, because you actually are allowed to use diacritics and you can register, but then for as I was mentioning before, the DNS transliterates numbers into letters. So you can use accent aigu or not, and you actually can end up into different websites. And that's a very common technique used by cyber criminals to make you log in into a bank or any other service and steal your credentials and install malware in your computer. This is but so in ICANN we allow that to be registered, but we cannot mandate who is allowed or not. So I can register a website in French, is the critic, and then someone else can register a website without the critic, but I cannot. So there is this opportunity, but we cannot distinct who has a right or not, or how they should register. As I was mentioning, this is an issue that it's
the technical opportunity. Apologies to interrupt you. The technical opportunity is clear. The question is if a country lived for years without diacritics and they need to have a transition period to start educate the population that they can actually properly name their domain names with diacritics. If you know about real cases in other countries who had this, no.
I don't think I can investigate, because in my region, Spain, Portugal, France, of course, they all use diacritics. But I'm now thinking, even in France or in Spain, they have Sevilla under the sea. They have the ñ, which is a different letter, and they don't use it. It's a good point. It's like you want to use your language properly, and then you use language properly when you write, but then when you go online, it's kind of a custom that you have because you couldn't do it before. You don't do it, but I'm thinking like I have to, it's a good question. I have to investigate. Like this goes into the discussion of public policies and how institutions, in this case the registry, could do a campaign to that, kind of use your language properly online as offline. But I'll have to investigate and come back to you and see. I can ask my colleagues in the registry in Spain, in Portugal, in France, if there are campaigns on that. Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll pass it to David. And David, do you have the same? So you have the same presentation. So I'll stop.
Yes,
you will share. Okay. No, I can. Okay, how do we stop sharing now? It doesn't let me. Okay, I think my Zoom froze, so I will just close Zoom and come back in. So this is a kind of brutal way of stopping it. Okay. Oh, can you do that? Oh, okay, there you go. Thank you.
Hello, hello, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your time and thank you for the invitation. First of all, congratulations for organizing this event, also for extending the invitation to UNESCO to join you today. This is a very interesting, multi-stakeholder approach and collaboration, having the technical side, also the policy, side part of the event. So I think it's a very good opportunity of reflection and to think together on these issues of universal acceptance. So thank you very much for the invitation, for having us here. As as someone who's originally from Colombia, speaking today from Paris and on this event, reminds me that the universal acceptance, it's more than a technical principle. It's actually a human one. It asks whether our digital systems are prepared to recognize the diversity of the world as it truly exists. And this is why we keep on working together with ICANN to promote universal acceptance as a fundamental principle for a truly, multilingual internet. And this cooperation is not new. We have been working with ICANN for a few years now, but we, in the last few years, we are focusing on UA as a main item, but we have other, initiatives and joint, work. I would like to also start by extending an invitation to you to collaborate with UNESCO in this area. This event is also an opportunity to connect and to probably reconnect on these items and this topic, because I know that you are working a lot on these issues, and we are also working from our side. So it's also an invitation to work together in the future for different initiatives related to this topic. So I can see that you have the slides in front of you. I will just let you know and give you a little bit of an overview of what UNESCO is doing on this area of multilingualism. The spirit of the UNESCO Constitution, actually right now we're in this, UNESCO 80, this is the 80th anniversary of the organization, and in the spirit of the Constitution, it reminds us that the peace is built not only through political and economic cooperation, but through mutual understanding among peoples. And this is where languages play an important role in understanding. When we value and we promote and we protect our linguistic diversity, we do more than just preserve the cultural heritage, but we also create spaces for every voice to be heard, every individual to participate fully in public life. So this is why we truly believe that inclusion begins when no one is excluded because of the language they speak or the language they use. And this is why it's since 2003, and I say 2003, more than 20 years ago, that UNESCO was very visionary. And our member states here adopted this normative instrument, which is the 2003 recommendation concerning the promotion and use of multilingualism and universal access to cyberspace, that I will be talking a little bit more in detail in a few minutes. Also, we have been working, as Andrea was mentioning, and I will just go very briefly here. UNESCO is also one of the co-lead implementation agencies of WISE's action line C8 on cultural diversity and identity, linguistic diversity and local content. We have been also very engaged with this WISE's Plus 20 review process, of course promoting this issue of multilingualism. With the IGF, we also have a very strong presence and participation on the same area, working with ICANN, but also working with different UN organizations that work also on these projects and programs, and specifically working also with linguistic communities, because this is also something that is very important for us to give them the relevance when working and developing tools and resources for the languages. So of course, the global response is clear, and my colleague Andrea was also mentioning that the Pact of the Future and the Global Digital Compact was adopted in 2024, and it calls for closing these digital divides, including the language divides. Because now with the generative AI, so we're also creating this language divides for those digitally disadvantaged languages, and this is why this international framework on the Pact of the Future call for multilingualism to be recognized, and the need to promote and preserve cultural diversity, cultural heritage, languages through the use of artificial intelligence. This was also reflected during the WISE's World Summit on Information Society Plus 20 review. It reminded us that many countries still face limited access to meaningful content, particularly in locally relevant languages. We know that, for example, in Africa, we have more than 2,000 languages, but only a few are recognized online. So this means also access to information, access to public services, and so on. So this is why this principle is very important for us. And we see that these communities continue to struggle with lower levels of digital literacy and skills. So this is why we call through these processes for the multilingual nature of internet, including through the adoption of internationalized domain names, as Andrea was mentioning, continued progress towards universal acceptance so that every language and script can be fully recognized and used online. So here at UNESCO, we are developing some strategies. For example, I will talk a little bit about, maybe go to the next slide, maybe that would be better, about the 2003 recommendation concerning the promotion of multilingualism in cyberspace. This recommendation focuses on 4 areas. The first one is the development of multilingual content and system. Now, I still believe it's some kind of impressive that member states were already talking about this in 2003 and that they put this relevant topic as a normative instrument. Of course, facilitating access to networks and services, the development of public domain content, and equitable balance between interests of right holders and public interest. So just to also tell you a little bit of how does it work. Of course, these are normative instruments. Member states are invited to adopt these recommendations and also to implement them in their countries. And also at UNESCO, we work with them to implement these recommendations, to support them, but we also do a monitoring process. This is a monitoring process that takes place every 4 years. The last one was the 5th monitoring process in 2023. And just last week, the guidelines for the new monitoring process was adopted, meaning that we will be reaching out to your country, for instance, and other countries to learn about the initiatives that have been undertaken and that have been developed in the last 4 years. So we want to know, we want to understand, and we want to see how this recommendation has been adopted at a national level, but also universal acceptance is also part of the recommendation. So we adopted the adapted the guideline to include universal acceptance. And here we will have some kind of like questions to measure also because we know that some countries are already very advanced with having systems that are UA ready, but we know that there are all the countries that are still struggling with this. So this is why the recommendation is a very important instrument. I invite you to stay tuned on this process, because we will then prepare a report that will be presented in 2027 for the General Conference at UNESCO, and you will be able to know and understand what are the milestones in each of our 194 member states, and we will be able to know and learn from them on the things that they have been doing. Now, if you allow me, I would like also to tell you that UNESCO is the lead agency of the UN International Decade of Indigenous Languages. This decade of indigenous languages was adopted in the United Nations General Assembly in New York in 2019, and it declared this period of 2022 to 2032 as the decade of indigenous languages because they were conscious of the, importance of promoting and revitalizing these languages, but also to draw the attention to the critical loss of indigenous languages and the urgent need to preserve, revitalize, and promote them. One of the main topics of this decade of indigenous languages is that we need to identify the measures to support the presence of the languages online, because now we're also facing an increase of, tools for different languages, but some indigenous languages are falling behind, and this is what we are trying to do, and this is one of our main purposes, to support these languages online so that they can also have meaningful participation and access to information. We work with different member states to prepare national action plans. Of course, we have a global action plan for the decade with 10 interconnected outcomes. We talk about health, access to justice in indigenous languages, also, gender equality and the role of women for language preservation, but also working with member states, developing tailored national action plans that reflect the reality of each country. So far we have already 16 national action plans that are finalized. We have 2 regional action plans, one in Africa and one in Central America. And we have also some institutional action plans for this decade. And this is one of the main purposes that we want to, have these action plans after the decade of indigenous languages, something that could stay there after the decade. And so, of course, we have, different members of the community. Of course, the decade of indigenous languages, we just serve as the secretariat, but we have a global task force, and it's a group of indigenous representatives from all, geographical regions. So this decade is really coordinated by the indigenous representatives together with the member states and with the United Nations. By the way, we're having our next Global Task Force meeting on the 12th of May. I will be happy to share the details also with you if you want to join and learn a little bit about what indigenous peoples around the world are doing. And also universal acceptance, that is a very important issue here. How to be able to have domain names that are multilingual, that are also inclusive for indigenous communities. We have had the issue of, Mayan languages, for example, interested in having a domain name that represents their languages. So these kind of discussions are very important and are part of the conversations that we have within the decade of indigenous languages. And so if I go back to this slide, we have also been building capacity to empower communities to produce this diversely linguistic content. Because, of course, we advocate for, UA, but we also need to have more content online to be able to have the systems ready. So we developed this toolkit on digital initiatives for indigenous peoples, and we work with the communities to implement this toolkit. And then I also wanted to tell you and also to present you that at UNESCO we are working to build the UNESCO World Atlas of Languages. And the idea is to be able to have a interactive tool able to document the language status worldwide. So this the idea of this platform is that it could also serve as a repository of keyboards, layouts, different resources that people will be able to access and download. And we're doing this with the support of nationally nominated focal points. So through our, permanent delegations here at UNESCO, we request a nomination of a national focal point, and then we work with the focal point of each member state to gather the necessary data. So this is one of the difference of the Atlas of Languages. We have official data from the government, which give us a very, interesting opportunity for research, for policymakers as well, to promote and to protect these languages. So right now the atlas is being migrated to a new platform. This is why if I can see some of you already Googling what atlas of languages in your laptops, but right now you will see that it's offline because we are integrating it or transferring this atlas into a new platform, and we will be launching it very, very soon. I hope you're following me, and I hope that I'm sad that I'm not in the room with you. I would have loved to be there to exchange a little bit more about these topics. But I just wanted to tell you that last year at UNESCO we had the Language Technologies for All conference. So language technologies are also a very important issue that we have been working on for the last few years. And during the Language Technologies for All conference, we were able to identify some of the challenges and also some of the solutions for the development of inclusive language technologies. And during this conference, we gathered more than 400 participants from different parts of the world. More than 300 people joined online as well. And one of the key outcomes of this conference was the launch of this global roadmap for multilingualism in the digital era. And this is the first roadmap of its kind because it addressed multilingualism and linguistic inclusion in the age of AI. And it promotes also inclusive AI systems for marginalized, indigenous, and minority language communities. We did this through an open consultation process. We gathered more than 100 consultations or 100 inputs from 53 countries, coming from the private sector, universities, member states. So it was a very interesting multi-stakeholder approach. Of course, the idea is also to support the implementation of this 2003 recommendation. And this roadmap has very interesting, it was developed in a very interesting manner because it it established the responsibilities, the role and responsibilities for different stakeholders, meaning how, linguistic communities, private sector, academia, and governments are involved in this process. And it also outlines some strategies and some actions that we will be, calling on you to help us implement. So the idea is this global roadmap. It's a collaborative effort because one of the points or one of the parts of the roadmap is responsibility for international organizations like UNESCO. But many other actions are needs implementation and leadership from other actors, including the government. So this is why we're also presenting this very important tool. Universal acceptance is, of course, the principle that was included in this global roadmap. So this again a very interesting result of this partnership with ICANN. And we keep on introducing this principle as a very important topic for multilingualism in the cyberspace. Now I wanted to mention some like an update on UA Day. Of course you know this probably better than me, but this is the fourth consecutive year that UNESCO and ICANN are working on UA Day. For this year, we had like 30 events that were shortlisted, including yours, of course, from the 71 submissions. And we have been working with these UA events through our network of field offices. At UNESCO, we have 53 field offices, and we have engaged already with these field offices that are participating and presenting during UA days events globally. So this is to tell you that this topic is one of the priorities, and this is why we wanted to include our field offices and to have meaningful participation to recognize the importance of UA and to also call the attention on the responsible stakeholders to this. But we have noticed, and I have noticed this also here at UNESCO, whenever we're talking with government representatives or different stakeholders, that the issue of universal acceptance sometimes is very unknown for those that are probably not related to this topic, or probably those who are not working directly with in internet governance or that are technical or responsible of their domain names. So this is why with ICANN and UNESCO, we joined forces to develop this policy brief that is called Advancing Universal Acceptance of Domain Names and Email Addresses for Multilingual Internet. This is actually for your information. We will be launching this policy brief very soon. And what is it's a very short policy brief, 21, 22 pages, and it's a very interesting document because it presents, if you see, for example, in point number 5, the challenges of universal acceptance. But then number 6, we have also policy recommendations for internet stakeholders. So we have very interesting recommendations for governments, for technology applications and service providers. So the idea is that we want, again, to work with you in different, capacities as government or service provider, technology application, language communities, to be able to implement this policy brief. And just to tell you, well, a little bit what it's in the policy brief. I think this, of course, better than me, what is the importance of UA and what are the challenges that we have, encountered and that we have added in this policy brief. But what I think is more relevant is the policy recommendations. And this is for main actors, the governments, the civil society, technology applications, and the international organizations. And I think that I want to mention the first one for the governments because it mentions the need or the importance.
Hello.
And you will be able to learn a bit more about it. I will go faster because probably you have questions and I don't want to stand and talk for so long. We have also introduced some suggested measurements of UA. We know that it's a bit challenging in some countries, in some cases, but we want to ideally start identifying, and assess what are the measures of what is the status of UA. So we have developed some potential questions that are relevant. For example, are the stakeholders promoting UA of all domain names and email addresses? Is there sufficient capacity development to technically implement UA? So this is also for us to understand and to know how to, support those member states and those actors who are interested in UA. But for us, it's important to know this, the answers to these questions. And now, before I end my presentation, this is a bit unrelated to the topic, but I think it's very relevant for you to know. UNESCO worked with the Said Business School from the Oxford University to develop this MOOC on AI and digital transformation in governments. I am putting it here because it's a free online course that includes, of course, the issues of multilingualism, but basically to train civil servants on AI and digital transformation in the government. You will have a certificate from Oxford University. It's available online in multiple languages. So this is also an invitation for you to participate, to take the course, and also to be part of the discussion on these issues. So thank you so much for your time. I have added the QR codes for our two websites, our multilingualism and linguistic diversity website, and then we have the one on the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. We have the upcoming meetings, online meetings for indigenous languages that will be important for you to join. We will be soon launching, together with the Global Roadmap, we have a plan of actions. So this will materialize the concrete actions for the Global Action Plan, and we will be also launching it soon. So you stay tuned for the upcoming launch of this plan of actions. So yeah, thank you very much for your time, and I hope this presentation was clear and that you know a little bit more about what we're doing at UNESCO and this intersection between, you know, different stakeholders, governments, linguistic communities, tech companies, and so on, and how we transform our mandate to adapt also UA and to support universal acceptance in internet. So thank you so much, and over to you. I mean, I'm available if you have questions, of course. Feel free to just ask your question. Thank you.
I have a question. So you've mentioned earlier that the global action plan calls for public-private partnership to promote multilingual access. My question is, has UNESCO contacted companies like Meta, Google, Microsoft directly in order to persuade them other than morally? Like maybe do you have any certain leverages?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. It's actually very interesting and a very nice question. Just the day before yesterday, I had a meeting with my colleagues in the UNESCO office in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, because they have a very interesting proposal on how to make more benefit of Kiswahili language online, because they want to see how to how Instagrammers and how content developers can monetize in social media with the Kiswahili language, for example. So yes, to answer to your question, yes, we have a strong partnership and communication with the platforms. Of course, UNESCO is the nature as an intergovernmental organization, so we work directly with the member states, but we try to engage with the private sector to have this present online. As I was mentioning, in Africa, out of the 2,000 languages, only a few have content moderation, so this is also a very critical issue for us, to have content moderation that is available in other languages, and not only in those that are mainstream languages. So we collaborate with them to have more presence of languages online. But yeah, and we try to to promote, and we try to raise this issue with the platforms.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you so much.
Our next speaker, Mikhail Anisimov, independent DNS expert.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, приветствуем. Hello.
Приветствую всех. Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to see so many familiar faces, former colleagues, and the experts, which I was happy to meet in person during my personal visits in Moldova previous years. My name is Mikhail Anisimov. I'm acting here as an independent DNS expert, and today I will be sharing some news and updates regarding universal acceptance discussions in the region, in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and Caucasus, as I was helping local community to coordinate some of the efforts in this field. So where do I start? Let's take a step back and review a few of the events and discussions which were in the previous day. For example, back in November 2025, at the ITU conference in Baku, Azerbaijan, there was an ITU WTDC. There was a special session specifically focusing on the universal acceptance and related questions. And ICANN suggested specific documents with a few proposals focusing on raising the awareness and implementation of the universal acceptance. This is the publicly available document, which is called ICANN submissions to the ITU decisions. It's available on the ICANN website, and I can share a link later with all participants if you want to. One of the points here was the suggestion to the ITU to develop specific indicators which will be measuring based on the ITU the level of awareness and adoption of universal acceptance practices around the world based on the ITU mechanisms and ITU internal metrics. And I would say that the local community was quite enthusiastic about that because ITU metrics are usually something which is taken very seriously by the governmental organizations. And we know that there is kind of competition between organizations, ministries specifically, and telecom administrations, agencies around those indicators. And some of the ministries are taking those indicators as their local KPIs. And I know it for sure that in some countries, all those ministries and governmental agencies do have direct order from their governments to improve their performance based on those indicators. And the idea around local community was that would be the best motivation for the governments to continue implementing universal acceptance principles, specifically to be better positioned in those ITU metrics. I was helping some of the local community representatives to coordinate those efforts between them, and those questions were addressed on two previous events which we had in the region during past months. Just to give an example, at the end of March, there was the Regional Universal Acceptance Day in Armenia, which covered 11 countries from the region. And there were the ITU representative on this event as well, where this question was raised and directly addressed to the ITU representative. The question was, do you believe that those indicators will be the another way to motivate governments to do all the to do all the work to continue improving the situation with universal acceptance in the room in those countries? And ITU representative, that was actually the first time the ITU representative gave the direct answer to that since the conference in Baku. His answer was, yes, we do believe that it would be the proper method to do this. And he also added that he suggested community directly to come up to any ITU events with those suggestions, those proposals regarding the how those metrics should look like. And after that, after the Universal Acceptance Day in Yerevan, Regional Day, there was another event. There was the IGF. It was Russian IGF. Again, with those questions was raised, and again, we had a very positive feedback from the community regarding those possible indicators, and this became a part of the strategic roadmap of several administrators to coordinate and to think about how those metrics should look like, whether they should be a part of the new ITU documents, whether the ITU should have any other separate discussions on its future events. And next steps regarding that is that regional organizations who usually coordinate positions of the local countries to be properly represented at the ITU events are taking it into their agenda as well. One of those organizations is the regional commonwealth in the field of communications, and so you probably know this organization as well because it coordinates some countries of Eastern Europe as well. And what's to expect next, actually? Now we're expecting some more consultations, internal consultations with the ministries of Eastern European countries, whether they agree to further work on those indicators, how those indicators should look like, and next steps is to coordinate it with the regional organizations and to suggest to raise this question on the next plenipotentiary event, ITU event, specifically targeting the process of creating the community-based events and to have those indicators in the end as the basic target metrics inside the ITU. So wrapping it up, I would say that we might expect new indicators within the ITU, and based on that, based on the experience of how other ITU metrics were implemented regarding the cybersecurity or regarding the online business availability. This probably for sure takes some time to implement, but this might become the new metrics which government officials might expect from their other governmental organizations to implement. This might become the new agenda point in the local efforts and the local digital agenda. At least for now, we don't know how exactly it will affect the local efforts for implementing that. But taking into consideration for lots and lots of the government, lots and lots of web services and lots of digital services, government is still one of the main actor and one of the organizations who is mostly empowered to change something. Having it in their agenda and having it in governmental list of the priorities would presumably improve the situation. I would say we should expect pretty big changes in this field. That's very brief what I was going to tell today about the new discussions, and this is still ongoing process. There is no current timeline about that, but regarding any timelines and any next steps, what we should expect next is the next conference of the ITU, which is going to be in Qatar, in Doha. And by that time, there should be some other discussions based on the community feedback in the region. By that time, we expect that those feedback, which was collected in Yerevan, in Universal Acceptance Day, Regional Universal Acceptance Day, and some local national events would be collected and would help to build the pipeline of providing those decisions into the ITU, to the ITU executives and to the ITU community as well. So that's very briefly what I was going to say about current discussions and latest updates regarding what is happening with the universal acceptance. I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I have a very straightforward question. How
Yeah,
ready
please.
how ready is like DNS for IDN today? Are there any weak spots that may need to be improved in the future or right now?
Well, yeah, this is a good question, but I would say that DNS is actually not the main point in this puzzle, not the main piece of this puzzle, because DNS actually works with the ASCII. It works with the numbers and figures and letters in ASCII. All those changes in universal acceptance are actually happening in the applications which you have on your phone, on your browser, on your laptop. Because universal acceptance, if you can see, you probably have already seen all those materials. This is a pyramid, which includes 5 different components of how universal acceptance should be treated. One of them is the translation from local languages to the ASCII, then storage, the visibility of this information, and so on, so on. So DNS actually is not something which you should care about. DNS is ready to work with it because DNS is continue working with the ASCII. But applications, browsers, mail clients, applications on, I don't know, iPhones, Androids, tablets, and so on. This is what we should be focusing on while talking about the universal acceptance.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the process?
Thank you, Mikhail. Спасибо.
Thank you, Alex, for the opportunity. Спасибо большое.
Идем дальше и ждем на наших следующих мероприятиях уже в Кишиневе непосредственно.
С большой радостью.
Благодарим. Дальше мы переходим к технической сессии. И у нас выступление экспертов Ассоциации коммуникации интернет. Роман Гуцу, технический директор компании Quant Applications. Он также сотрудничает с ассоциацией по вопросам универсального принятия и сейчас поделится практическим опытом внедрения тех решений, которые могут помочь внедрению универсального принятия проблемами, с которыми столкнулись, и способами их решения. Пожалуйста, Роман.
Да, здравствуйте всем еще раз. Давайте выведем презентацию на экран, подготовили небольшую. Дайте пульт. Да, у нас стояла задача продемонстрировать, как сделать продукт с поддержкой Universal Acceptance в рамках нашего сегодняшнего форума. Давайте я начну со вступления. Что такое Universal Acceptance мы уже обсудили, как бы для Молдовы и для Румынии, то есть это довольно-таки нужная вещь. В нашем языке румынском содержится много символов, которые необходимо поддерживать, чтобы люди, то есть не из столицы, скажем так, вообще из периферии, могли легко пользоваться интернетом, писать на своем родном языке и, соответственно, смотреть то, что они хотят, и добиваться того, что они хотят. Почему это важно? Потому что половина населения планеты пользуется не ASCII письменностью, а используется своими языками. Вот. Опа. Почему UA нужен Молдове сегодня? То есть в румынском языке у нас есть 5 дидактических знаков, и если их срезать, допустим, как в слове ассоциация интернет, получается совсем другое слово, технически, и идентичность бренда, доверие пользователей, поисковая релевантность страдают из-за этого. То есть если веб и почта не умеют корректно представить язык. Из культурных аргументов можно подчеркнуть, что имена бренда организации заслуживают своего настоящего написания, как они пишутся на своем родном языке. Локальный контент лучше всего ранжируется, когда сохраняет диакритику. И соответствует данная тема цифровой повестке Молдовы в ЕС по технологической возможности. ICANN дает методологию, но, к сожалению, в нашем регионе на данный момент живых демо мало. Надеемся, что в будущем их будет больше. Реестром .md и ESP считаю, что нужны эталоны референс конфигурации, чтобы .md домены тоже поддерживали данную фичу. На данный момент вот мы предоставили сайт коммунитати интернет, сделали небольшую платформу. Давайте я попробую. Секундочку. Давайте один из наших коллег, его зовут Ислам, прочитает, что мы развернули, расскажет. Пожалуйста, Ислам.
Так, короче, мне легче на английском написать. So, what we shipped? So we have an IDN domain in production. Basically, it supports what is called Punycode. Punycode is how we express certain Unicode characters. We represent them using ASCII in order to provide a more broad support for our URL, which is in Romanian language. So first we have the IDN domain in production, URL forms also, which is provided with Punycode, authentication layers. Yeah, that's it for this slide. So yeah, this is a very direct example. This is our website, which is called asociațiainternet.com. And as you can see, there's a direct conversion to xn -- and etc. It is a way to express our domain name to be supported globally in any browser. So when, for example, the browser sees the Romanian characters, it automatically converts them to this format, which is understandable by the current DNS technologies.
Спасибо, Ислам. Давайте продолжим. Смотрите, мы расскажем полный стек от посетителя до письма, что мы сделали. То есть посетитель, браузер или почтовый клиент как бы вводит название вместе с символами из нелатинской группы языков, допустим. DNS-провайдер резолвит их, проводит encryption, то есть и email и прочее. И, соответственно, ведет, редиректит, так сказать, пользователя на, ну, в данном случае мы сделали это на WordPress-платформе, двуязычный сайт, который поддерживает. То есть идея в том, что юзер конечный может написать, как он привык на своем языке, имя домена, и его редиректнет с полной поддержкой на ресурс, который он хочет, так сказать, сделать. Также мы подняли веб-сервис, который поддерживает доменное имя ассоциация интернет, как это пишется в оригинале, то есть, как я показывал на предыдущем слайде. То есть юзер, если напишет на почту contact@associaciainternet.com, письмо дойдет туда, куда нужно, несмотря на все ограничения. Пройдем дальше. То есть мы реализовали как бы готовый UA микросайт на WordPress, который поддерживает двуязычную тему румынский язык и английский. Захостили на Apache через PHP-платформу, который обслуживает и читаемую IDN-форму и ACE-форму через сервер Alias. То есть набрав любую из вариаций в браузере, пользователь попадает на тот же сайт с валидным HTTPS-протоколом. Что было сделано? Кастомная тема коммунитати интернет под идентику ассоциации. Мы подняли Apache хост сервер alias IDN плюс pani код и www варианты. Мы делаем принудительный редирект с HTTP, опасного протокола на HTTPS, то есть secure протокол на всех хост-вариантов, и добавили сертификат Let's Encrypt для того, чтобы подключение было 100% защищенного для всех юзеров. Какие UI-свойства у нас есть? То есть браузер покрывает читаемый румынский URL в адресной строке. Визуально это отображается в браузере как ассоциация, именно интернет. Поисковые платформы, такие как Google, индексируют обе формы и после энкрипшена и до, то есть ассоциация интернет и так, как это выглядит в ASCII форме. И внешние ссылки на IDN-платформу тоже работают корректно, то есть в любом мессенджере, если мы отправим ассоциация интернет Space, как бы тот платформу, которую мы сделали, его правильно редиректнет. Идем далее. Про почтовый сервер, да, мы настроили также почтовый сервер EIE, который поддерживает эту фичу. Это SMTP сервис, который нам предоставил ICANN до конференции в формате GitHub репозитории, то есть мы это все подняли и развернули. Сервер принимает UTF-8 символы в отправителе, получателе и заголовок. То есть виртуальные ящики заведены и для IDN, и для ACE-формы, и указывают на один и тот же mail. То есть вот как видно, контакт ассоциация internet.com и контакт, соответственно, encrypted доставляются в один и тот же inbox. Вот. Из компонентов, что мы имеем, это постфикс с включенным OpenDKIM, который нам предоставили, подписывает каждое исходящее письмо, Spam Assistant, который фильтрует контент и, то есть, вредоносный контент отправляет в папку спам. И поднято это все на RoundCube 1.5, это веб-почта с полностью UTF-8 интерфейсом. Что это дает практически? Мы можем писать письма на contact@associateinternet.com, получатель видит IDN-форму в своем почтовом клиенте, то есть корректно отображается, куда он это отправил. И, соответственно, ответы маршрутизируются обратно через IDN-домен. Вся почта подписана, аутентифицирована, то есть можем тоже это продемонстрировать. Идемте далее. Да, про аутентификацию. То есть email-аутентификация – это место, где спотыкается большинство EAI-проектов. То есть все записи SPF, DKIM, DMRC должны существовать и для реальной ACE-кодировки. То есть в DNS-домена должны быть прописаны и символы, как вот в нашем случае ассоциация, то есть и обычные encode-символы. И все три записи должны быть опубликованы на домене и валидироваться. Зачем это нужно для UA? Потому что без этих символов почта часто уходит в спам у крупных провайдеров, таких как Gmail, Yahoo и прочих. Строгий SPF мешает подделке IDN-формы. И TLC подключение защищает утечку данных при подключении. Доказательство, что это все работает, то есть каждое утверждение выше проверено на живом продакшн-сервере. Не знаю, может, мы сможем после презентации вывести это на экран, показать. То есть на веб-стороне у нас есть домен http://associateinternet.com, который, соответственно, сейчас открывается в интернете. И его, соответственно, закодированный, вот ниже можно видеть формат. То есть обе эти ссылки приведут на один и тот же ресурс юзера. Это поднято, как я уже говорил, на WordPress, и оба домена соответствуют Let's Encrypt сертификату. Что происходит на почтовой стороне? То есть у нас есть mail-сервер, который отвечает за все редиректы, и содержит и IDN, и ACE получателей. Соответственно, каждое письмо подписывается, публичная тексте запись на домене видна, и это все работает, как должно работать в идеале. Секунду. На данный момент в Universal Acceptance реально сложно, потому что сами протоколы зрелые, но команды спотыкаются на операционной обвязке, на сертификатах, на мейлбоксе. Объясню почему. Потому что крупные домен-провайдеры на самом-то деле неохотно на данный момент идут навстречу. То есть мы пытались поднять этот ресурс на .md провайдере. К сожалению, не смогли, потому что он не поддерживает Universal Acceptance. И сложно действительно найти провайдеры, которые могут добавить в свой домен символы Universal Acceptance. Да. Идем далее. Куда мы движемся дальше? Текущая инсталляция, вот то, что мы сделали, associateinternet.com, это рабочий референс, и следующие шаги, мы можем это масштабировать, давать молдавскому комьюнити пример, который они могут использовать далее, сделать этот проект open source и выложить в рамках форума IGF. Я думаю, что в этом не будет никакой проблемы. Для того, чтобы молдавские компании локальные, возможно, даже правительственные, либо некоммерческие организации могли этим пользоваться, могли настраивать себе почты именно на тех доменах, которые они хотят, использовать ту письменность, которая им близка и по духу, и по стране, и надеемся, что наши действия помогут людям в этом вопросе. Спасибо вам за внимание. Вот ниже предоставлена почта, которая была сделана в рамках этого проекта, на котором, если прямо сейчас вы напишите, как бы мы сможем отследить ответ и вывести его на экран. Ну и сам сайт демонстрации. В целом у меня все. Спасибо за внимание.
Да, я думаю, будет хорошо показать, как работает этот ресурс и как он выглядит. Отметим, что это пилотный ресурс. И пока готовится демонстрация ресурса, я попрошу техническую команду вывести видео ICANN, которое у нас по программе.
The domain name system has grown and evolved over the years. Internet users now have the ability to register domain names and email addresses that are longer than 3 characters in a variety of scripts in multiple languages. That's why we need universal acceptance, a technical best practice to usher in the next era of internet connectivity that grows with the needs of users around the globe and supports those who speak your language. Because when everyone can enjoy the benefits of a multilingual, digitally inclusive internet, it just clicks. Learn how you can get involved and help build an internet for all.
Universal acceptance, or UA, is a best practice ensuring that all valid domain names and email addresses, regardless of script, language, or length, are accepted by all applications. Unfortunately, not every system is currently set up to handle this diversity yet. This example shows the difference between a website that is UA ready and one that is not. In both cases, the objective is for the user to register themselves using a form, but when attempting to use an internationalized email address, results are quite different. IDNs are part of global technical standards and should be supported in the same way as any other email address. Such limitations emerge from the various components of software, like programming languages, libraries, databases, and utilities. The medium through which user interaction occurs also matters, such as browsers and email clients. This means there is a need to test, configure, and potentially adapt these different components in order to become compliant with universal acceptance principles. These different components are abstracted into 5 verbs, which are accept, validate, process, store, and display. These elements normally work in succession, making them into a chain of sorts. If one step fails, the next one will likely fail as well. This is why creating universal acceptance requires the revision of different parts of the system. seeing as it might be the case that a single component is at fault, and the fix might be simpler than it is imagined. Of course, this is different in each case. Let us study each verb individually now. Many applications have input fields that the user is asked to complete. Generally, more attention is paid to accepting all characters in a person's name, although at times, users are still asked to write a transliteration of their name or omit diacritics. For email addresses, developers need to ensure that the input field accepts all valid characters, including those in Unicode. Successful acceptance of all characters normally involves enabling UTF-8 inputs in the programming language or framework being used, and ensuring that the environment is configured to expect that input. Java Swing and other current GUI solutions inherently support UTF-8 inputs, potentially making the step simpler. If accepting input is important, then validation is essential, as it flags a given email address as valid and usable. Our studies show that many coders and libraries still use regular expressions to perform validation, which makes UA difficult to achieve, given that an ASCII-based logic is usually employed in such cases, which only includes Latin letters A to Z and numbers 0 to 9. There are, however, a series of compliant libraries that make this implementation much easier, such as ICU for comprehensive Unicode support in Java and C, C++, and IDNA for handling internationalized domain names in Python and Rust. These libraries also assist in supporting longer top-level domains that exceed the maximum of 4 characters that used to be expected in the past. Proper input processing maintains the integrity of user data, ensuring its consistency. One of the key aspects of this step is data normalization, which involves transforming Unicode data into its canonical form. Here, we see an example of both the precomposed and decomposed forms of a character. In precomposed form, all constituent parts are understood as a single character, while in decomposed form, the character is understood as a sequence of its constituent parts. Successful processing also involves testing the decoding of data after it has been stored, making sure that the characters are being correctly interpreted and are output as they were intended. A tool that assists these various tasks is the previously mentioned ICU, which includes various functions for Unicode normalization and other text processing tasks. For Python, Unicode data performs a similar job. For our purposes, databases need to be set up to support UTF-8 encoding, which can be achieved both in SQL and NoSQL. Proper configuration ensures accurate storage of characters, preserving information integrity. In MySQL, character set and collation need to be configured manually, while NoSQL solutions like MongoDB often already natively support UTF-8. Usage of normalization form C is preferred, meaning storing characters in their precomposed forms whenever possible. It is also important to maintain consistency within the database, choosing to either store addresses as A labels or U labels, but not mixing both. In essence, an A label is the ASCII representation of an address in Unicode, prefixed by XN-. Additionally, configuring indexes and full text search features to account for UTF-8 can significantly improve performance and accuracy when querying this data. Displaying internationalized data correctly involves considering a few aspects. First, fonts used by the application should support a wide range of characters, and employing font fallback mechanisms can be a useful safeguard. Another key consideration is the display of characters in right to left (RTL) orientation, which is required for Semitic languages, with the application dynamically adjusting text direction based on necessity. This calls for the implementation or revision of responsive design techniques, adapting the UI to handle different scripts and languages, ensuring that the desired spacing and layout is maintained in all scenarios. Developers do not need to start from scratch to achieve universal acceptance, as the ICANN GitHub repository hosts a set of minimal viable products and best practices to help on this matter, which can be found within the UA code samples folder of the repository. These resources are free and available in multiple programming languages, namely Java, JavaScript, Kotlin, PHP, Python, and Swift. The code samples can serve both as bases and as examples, and their usage is open to any interested projects. UA implementation can also be divided into phases in order to make it more manageable. This is what ICANN itself did, as detailed in the case study published by the Universal Acceptance Steering Group on uasg.tech. The first step is to ensure that newer ASCII-based TLDs work, such as those using more than 4 characters. Next, integration should focus on supporting internationalized domain names, which is well documented and widely supported. The final step is to ensure that email address internationalization is fully integrated, which requires heavier lifting, but also builds upon the previous phases. This makes it so that achieving UA readiness can be a project that generates smaller deliverables and in which progress is measurable. Enhance your competitive edge and contribute to a multilingual, interoperable internet. Join leading companies in this movement and open your services to the next billion users. The time to act is now.
Languages on the internet are as diverse as its users, and over the years, there has been a significant shift from a predominance of English content to a more multilingual landscape. Consider this: almost half of the internet's contents is in languages that use non-ASCII scripts. Yet, the infrastructure of many email systems still relies on outdated standards, limiting linguistic diversity. Email remains one of the most utilized applications worldwide, being not only exchanged directly by users, but also being integrated into forms and various software, which demonstrates the importance of making email systems a cornerstone of internationalization efforts. Universal acceptance and email address internationalization, or EAI, are practices that ensure that all valid domain names and email addresses, regardless of script, language, or length, are accepted by all applications and systems. EAI allows for email addresses with internationalized domain names, IDNs, in the domain part, and Unicode characters in the local part of the mailbox name. A lack of comprehensive EAI adoption removes the reliability that is expected when using such an essential communication tool. The user experience with EAI should be consistent with that of traditional mailboxes. They can be created without special commands, and EAI addresses can send and receive messages normally. With that in mind, EAI readiness can be categorized into 3 ratings: Silver, Gold, and Platinum. Silver level ensures that you can correspond with others who have internationalized email addresses, even if your own system is limited to ASCII addresses. Gold means your system can host internationalized email addresses, with some configuration and limits, as well as Silver's ability to correspond with others. And Platinum assures that your system can host internationalized email addresses and offers full internationalization support across all user interfaces and documentation. Let's dive deeper into the components that make up an EAI-ready email system. There are 4 essential components to consider. First, we have the Mail Transfer Agent, or MTA, This is the engine responsible for routing emails between different servers, ensuring that messages reach their destination anywhere around the globe. Next is the Mail Delivery Agent, or MDA. This component retrieves emails from the MTA and delivers them to an inbox, handling the complexities of various scripts and formats. The Mail Submission Agent, or MSA, is responsible for accepting emails from the email clients and forwarding them to the MTA. It ensures that emails are properly authenticated and prepared for delivery. Lastly, the Mail User Agents, or MUA, are the email interfaces that users are normally exposed to and where they expect the technology to just work in an intuitive manner. Implementing EAI primarily involves updating and configuring your software stack. The first step should be to assess existing systems for EAI readiness, identifying components needing an upgrade. Once bottlenecks are identified, EAI-compliant software solutions should be selected to ensure each component of your system supports UTF-8 and SMTP UTF-8. On your screen, you can see a list with several of them. After configuration, rigorous testing is essential, ensuring emails can be processed in various combinations. These are the cases normally used for testing. A system that is set up ideally will process messages from EAI mailboxes, ensure MUAs display messages from EAI mailboxes, accept messages containing UTF-8 content from an EAI-compatible MDA, enable hosting functionality for both users and administrators, provide clear documentation on setup, use, and management. To learn more about all of this, follow the subject on social media.
Hello everyone, I'm Nitin Wadia, Vice Chair of Universal Acceptance Steering Group. Universal Acceptance, or UA. Hello everyone, I'm Nitin Wadia, Vice Chair of Universal Acceptance Steering Group. Universal Acceptance, or UA, ensures that all domain names and email addresses are accepted and processed correctly by the Internet applications and systems. It's about making sure that every domain name and email address, regardless of its script or length, is recognized and fully functional across all digital platforms and services. To me, universal acceptance means inclusivity and accessibility in the digital space. It's about breaking down barriers and enabling users from diverse linguistic and cultural backgrounds to fully participate in the online world without facing technical obstacles. UA has many benefits. It enables users from around the world to access online services and communicate effectively in their native language. It facilitates economic growth and innovation by removing technical barriers that hinder the adoption of new TLDs and domain names in non-Latin scripts. It improves the user experience by reducing instances of email and website rejections or error messages due to UA-related issues. And it strengthens the resilience and stability of the Internet by promoting interoperability and compatibility among different systems and platforms. The Rajasthan government initiative to provide a free email address to all citizens, known as Rajmail, is a great example of UA. By offering email address on an IDN Rajasthan.Bharat, the government is ensuring that all citizens, regardless of their linguistic and cultural backgrounds, can utilize and access digital services effectively. The Rajmail initiative serves as a successful case study of universal acceptance implementation at the regional level, demonstrating how government can leverage UA principles to enhance digital accessibility and inclusivity. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Satish and I live in India. This question is often asked as to why is universal acceptance one of the cornerstones of the internet today and for the future. The world is very diverse in terms of languages, writing systems, scripts, and so on. Now, in order for the internet to reflect to be inclusive of this diversity, it must support different writing systems while creating its unique identifiers such as URLs and domain names and email IDs. Unfortunately, today's internet does not work like this. This is an ideal that is not yet supported. So I would say that all stakeholders, whether it's government or the civil society or business or technical community, should come together to achieve universal acceptance for an inclusive future tomorrow. Thank you.
Many people around the world are currently excluded from experiencing the full benefits of the internet simply because they are unable to use a domain name or email address of choice in their language and script. Universal acceptance is a technical requirement that ensures all valid domain names and email addresses, regardless of language, script, or length, can be used by internet users and accepted by all internet-enabled applications, devices, and systems. Universal acceptance is a gateway to a more inclusive and multilingual internet and is key to unlocking the potential of new GTLDs to foster competition, consumer choice, and innovation in the domain name industry.
My name is Raymond Wanaka from Accra, Ghana. I'm the founder and president of Pegasus. Why is UA important for the African continent to be serious about it? It is very important because Africa is the continent that has the largest number of
Можно немножко
local
звук
languages.
прибавить?
Unlike in other continents where they could proudly say they have English as the mainly spoken language, Africa is not the same. We have a lot of different local languages, and it is important we participate in universal acceptance because this will enable us to use our various local languages on the internet with regards to domain names and email addresses. So it is very important for the African continent to be engaged in UA activities. I call on all Africans to play a critical role to ensure their systems are UA compliant and also to engage in the various working groups of UA. And if you want to know more about UA, please visit our website, which is the uasg.tech. Come on board, let's make it work. Thank you.
My name is Manal Ismail, Chief Expert Internet Policies at the National Telecom Regulatory Authority of Egypt. Universal acceptance is crucial for a seamless multilingual experience on the internet, particularly in this digital era. It is challenging because we need to work on the awareness of both the supply and the demand at the same time, and because it needs very wide deployment before it bears its fruits. But it's definitely worth the effort to make the internet more inclusive by allowing multilingual and variable length domain names work seamlessly on the internet. We owe it to those who need it, so please make sure your systems are UA ready and keep the awareness spreading.
ICANN with the community members with language expertise have made a big effort to get ready to bring in the languages they use into the domain name space. Now it's a turn to make sure your systems certainly accept the domain names and the email addresses with all languages. Visit uasg.tech for technical resource and join us for the genuine multilingual internet.
Universal acceptance ensures all domain names and email addresses work flawlessly across any device or software. This principle has been at the forefront of my advocacy for over 25 years, long before I coined the phrase. The next generation of the internet is an international one. For a truly inclusive internet, systems need to recognize the richness of different languages and scripts. Users deserve domain names and email addresses that reflect their identity. Simply put, UA opens the door to the next billion users and is a critical part of digital inclusion.
Коллеги, мы только что посмотрели 4 коротких видеоматериала, которые дополняют сегодняшнюю дискуссию с разных сторон. Первый ролик — это Introduction to Universal Acceptance. В сжатой форме объясняет саму идею универсального принятия. Интернет должен одинаково корректно работать со всеми действительными доменными именами и адресами электронной почты, вне зависимости от языка, алфавита или длины записи. Второе видео Universal Acceptance Technical Guide уже показывает практическую сторону вопроса. Какие изменения необходимы в системах, в программном обеспечении цифровых сервисов, чтобы они были готовы к современному многоязычному интернету. Третий материал, третий видеоролик посвящен настройке почтовых систем для поддержки интернационализированных адресов электронной почты, то есть возможности использовать email на национальных языках и с нелатинскими символами. Четвертое видео Call for Action for Building an Internet for All напоминает, что речь идет не только о технологиях, но и о более широком принципе равного доступа к цифровой среде для всех пользователей. Эти материалы хорошо показывают, что универсальное принятие — это уже не узкая техническая тема, как неоднократно сегодня обсуждалось, а важная часть глобальной цифровой повестки. Без поддержки многоязычных доменов, локальных языков и современных адресов электронной почты невозможно говорить о действительно инклюзивном интернете, который доступен для всех. Именно поэтому ICANN, в том числе региональная группа, ЮНЕСКО и международное сообщество продвигают эту тему через просветительские, образовательные и технические инициативы по всему миру. Для Молдовы это также напрямую связано с развитием цифровых услуг, доступностью сервисов для граждан и интеграцией в современное интернациональное цифровое пространство. Я думаю, что на данном моменте мы объявим перерыв и вернемся через час для того, чтобы продемонстрировать наши ресурсы, которые были разработаны, и также нас ждет продолжение технической части. И у нас еще есть несколько интересных презентаций от авторитетных экспертов, поэтому оставайтесь с нами. Спасибо.